both. I think when people tune in, they want to hear who said what. They want to hear what it means to me. We'll leave opinion making up to our viewers who are smart enough to do that on their own.
Elizabeth Vargas reports, weeknights 6/5 Central on NewsNation.
On my show, we're going to go in depth and ask the tough questions that need to be asked in a way that is deep and thoughtful without opinion. You get to make up your own mind on NewsNation. We hope to tell the biggest stories, the stories that matter most to our audience. It's important more than ever today to know what's happening in the world. And I want to share that with our viewers.
Elizabeth Vargas reports, weeknights 6/5 Central on NewsNation.
Elizabeth Vargas Reports, my new show, will not be an opinion show. It is a straight news show. The ground we've staked, you can see very clearly every night on NewsNation. Sometimes we'll have different points of view. It's important to hear both. I think when people tune in, they want to hear who said what. They want to hear what it means to me. We'll leave opinion making up to our viewers who are smart enough to do that on their own.
Elizabeth Vargas reports, weeknights 6/5 Central on NewsNation.
Elizabeth Vargas Reports, my new show, will not be an opinion show. It is a straight news show. The ground we've staked, you can see very clearly every night on NewsNation. Sometimes we'll have different points of view. It's important to hear both. I think when people tune in, they want to hear who said what. They want to hear what it means to me. We'll leave opinion making up to our viewers who are smart enough to do that on their own.
Elizabeth Vargas reports, weeknights 6/5 Central on NewsNation.
Hello there and welcome to a very special live stream from NewsNation's new state-of-the-art studio right in the heart of New York City. I'm Tamsin Fidel from New York's very own Pix 11 News, and today we're streaming on Nexstar broadcasting platforms live all across the country. I'm joined by Emmy award-winning journalist and television host Elizabeth Vargas today, who is kicking off her brand new show, Elizabeth Vargas Reports, tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central on NewsNation. And of course, you can find your channel at newsnationnow.com/join us to take part in the conversation. And so, we're going to be opening this up so we can hear what is on your mind. But first, let me welcome the host of Elizabeth Vargas Reports, Elizabeth Vargas. So nice to see you,
Tamsin. It's so great to have you on our set. What do you think?
I love this. This is absolutely beautiful.
It's nice.
We're going to talk a little bit about the studio, but this is really great.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you, and I know there are a lot of questions, but first of all, what can we expect from Elizabeth Vargas Reports?
It's an hour-long look at the biggest stories of the day. It is the newscast of record for NewsNation. It is not an opinion show. We don't do opinions here, nor do we do any shouting. I'm not going to. I'm not going to have guests on who are going to yell at each other. I don't like watching it. I don't like experiencing it, and you're not going to have that on this show. We're going to take a look at the handful of the biggest stories of the day and go in depth on them, provide a lot of nuance and context, perspective, because very little in life is black and white. It's all
so true.
Very many shades of gray, and that's where we're going to live. So we're really looking forward to it.
I know it's really important to all of us to really gain the viewers' trust. Talk a little bit about that, because I think that is critical in this day and age.
Sure, you do that night after night.
Yeah.
You know. We intend to come here and do a great job covering the news. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes.
And I think that you earn that trust night after night by showing viewers that you're going to cover the news fully, thoroughly, and thoughtfully. We all know that there's 10% of Americans who are extreme far right, and there's a cable news network that caters to that crowd. The same thing for the left, and 80% of Americans are center right or center left, and are sort of right there in the middle. The 80% of Americans that are in the middle are the viewers that we're going after on this show.
So I'm curious, people have followed you for a long time, have cheered you on for a long time. What makes this show different, or this new job different for you?
Well, I'm diving back into daily news coverage, which I haven't done in a few years. I replaced Barbara Walters as the host of 2020 and hosted that program for 15 years. And then left ABC to do some documentaries. I launched a syndicated show called iCrime, which airs on PIX.
Yes, it does.
WPIX.
I see you every day. I feel like I've been watching you every day for a long time.
We started that show. We got the idea for that show after the viral video of the George Floyd murder, happened. Derek Chauvin would not be in prison today were it not for that video. The same could be said of the killers of Ahmaud Arbery. And Kyle Rittenhouse might not have been acquitted had it not been for cell phone video. So they're a real power right now. Everybody's walking around with one of these in their pocket. It's not only an HD camera, but a computer. So we started that show. And then I got the call to come back to daily news coverage. As Perry Sook told me, he said, what do you think about coming back to being part of the last great adventure in television news? And I thought, you know what? I'm in.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
And it really is. It really is. And it's interesting how things have changed throughout the years. I mean, you and I have been in this business for a long time, but you're right. With the addition of cell phones, with how everyone's kind of reporting what's going on, everyone's an eyewitness, it changes things quite a bit in this industry.
It does. It definitely changes it. But I think right now, in this incredibly historic news cycle that we are experiencing, that being thoughtful and being careful and not jumping to the worst and the most extreme conclusions and points of view is more important now than ever before.
So we want to talk about people. Viewers, if you're out there, we'd love to get your questions for Elizabeth. So send them in, because we're going to be looking for them, and we're going to be asking you whatever questions we get coming our way.
Not that I'll answer whatever question you send
What she decides to answer, those are the ones. So I'm curious about this. How did you get into journalism to begin with? I know everybody has a backstory. Mine started in the garage. Like, I was paying my parents to watch my newscasts in the garage.
That's
I don't know why.
hilarious.
That's what I did.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm an Army brat. I grew up overseas on Army bases, completely without television. It's very ironic that I now make a living in it. I was editor-in-chief of my high school newspaper. Ended up going to college at the best school of journalism in the country, which is the University of Missouri, and started working while in college on the ABC local station there, and graduated and started my career. And I've never, even in those early lean years in local news, and you and I both know what I'm talking about, it never occurred to me to do anything else.
Yeah.
I absolutely love what I do. I love telling stories, which is in essence what this job is. We look at what's happening and we tell a story about it. We report it, we get to interview, having a front row seat to history. I've been in the Oval Office and interviewed the President of the United States. I've been to Iraq and interviewed then Senator Biden and Senator Lindsey Graham together when they were playing well together in the Green Zone. I've been to the jungles of Cambodia and the slums in India. I've been anywhere and everywhere, the Gulf Coast when Hurricane Katrina hit. It's been a real privilege every step of the way that people trusted me to tell their story. Well,
it goes back to that question I asked you about trust. You've been to those places, told those stories, seen so many different things. You're a mom of two boys, right?
Yes.
You're going to be juggling a lot.
Yes, single working mom. One of my oldest son is a freshman in college. He plays college basketball and goes to school up in Boston.
Nice.
So we've been ODing on March Madness, to say the least. And my youngest son is a sophomore in high school here in the city. So
special.
It's the best thing in my life.
Yeah, I know.
My two kids.
I know. Well, so I want to talk a little bit about NewsNation, because NewsNation has really been building a reputation for a source for credible, reliable news. Is that part of the attraction for you?
Absolutely. It's already been rated, even though we're not even on 24/7 yet. News watchdog groups have rated it #1 when it comes to lack of bias and right down the middle. And I really think that's the sweet spot. I think those 80% of American viewers out there who feel ignored and feel that their point of view isn't represented and just want to hear the news covered thoughtfully and thoroughly without having a point of view rammed down their throat. That's the audience we're going after. And already we are seeing media watchdog groups rank us as being #1 when it comes to that.
That means a lot to break through. It really does, especially with a network that's so young.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is young. I mean, we're just starting. I think we're just, by the end of this month, we're going to be Monday through Friday, around the clock, 24/7. So, yeah, growing pains, so to speak.
No, they're going to be good. They're going to be good growing pains. What are you most excited about making that switch into covering daily news?
Just getting to interview once again all the daily news makers, or the people who are great when it comes to analyzing and putting into context what's happening. Even all those years when I was doing documentaries, both at ABC News and then later, and even with that syndicated show, I'm a voracious news consumer. I watch the news. I read the news constantly. I love the news. I'm intensely interested and organically interested in what's happening in this country and around the planet. And just to be able to get back into reporting on that is really exciting.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about where you're going to be reporting from, because this is I've watched, I've witnessed this being built over the course of the last several months, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Do you want to talk a little bit about this studio you're going to be in?
Because we have these great big walls here, and we can put images and video into them. There's also one over there behind you, and I don't know if we have a camera angle that shows this control room, but it is massive.
Yes.
I mean, I have worked at ABC News, and I worked at NBC News. I have never, ever worked in a place with a control room.
There we go. There you can get a view of it.
Yeah, they can all run around and do jumping jacks in there, and still have room to spare. So, the control room is basically the heartbeat of this whole thing, because as you can see all those monitors up on the wall, those are all the different video sources and live cameras that we have, all the different ways around the world that we can show what's happening. And our director, our fearless director, and our executive producers, Adam and Chris, do a fantastic job in keeping all those balls juggled up in the air.
And I know we have so many local stations across the country as well that help contribute and make all this happen. And that's what makes, I think, this so special with regard to NewsNation, because we can get sources from all different places, news from all different places.
Right, all those Nexstar stations that Nexstar owns many, I think it's the single biggest owner of local television stations in the United States, also owns NewsNation, and we absolutely intend to ask people like yourself. I already put in a pitch to Tamsin before we started. I was like, I want you on my show. We're going to be drawing on those reporters. And by the way, in many of these big stories in small towns in America that turn out to be massive, we will have an advantage because we will have basically a local reporter on the ground. Whether it's the train derailment in East Palestine or the shootings in Nashville, we have reporters who we can count as part of our team because they are at these Nexstar-owned stations around the country. So it's a real advantage.
And you have
it's
a lot
secret
of them
weapon.
It really is, and you have a lot of them with a lot of local experience in their area, and that means so much.
And there's nothing. I mean, you can, all these big network and national news organizations will send reporters into these towns and cities when news happens. But there's nothing like having a local reporter on the ground who knows the mayor and knows the city council member and knows the people who live on that street and can walk up to that door because they're known and be able to really give a local flavor to the whole.
Well, and that's what I think is so important. You mentioned Perry Sook earlier, but it was really important to him to have that local connection, and we're seeing that here, and then all of it brought together with
Did you start?
NewsNation.
Have you spent your whole career in local news?
I've been in local news my whole career.
Right.
Yeah, my whole career. So I know how important it is, and here at PIX over 15 years. So
wow.
Yeah, it's
that's
been
an
a long
amazing
time.
run.
So it is, and I know New York, and so I feel good. It's my hometown, and it's the people, where they're going, what they're doing, what their day starts like, and what their day ends like. So it's really important. And I didn't realize it at the time when I went into it. I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to end up, but local news has definitely.
Well, the #1 news market is a nice place.
It's a good place, right? New York City. All right, let's get some viewers' questions first of all. So we have Carrie from Michigan. What is the best thing about being in your chosen profession?
The best thing is having that front row seat, getting to actually go to these places. I mean, it's one thing to read about the destruction, for example, that happened in Hurricane Katrina, where I slept in the backseat of a car for a week while we covered that. Or to read in the newspaper or watch on television, what's happening in the war in the Middle East. To actually be there is something else entirely. To actually go to the White House and sit down and ask the president questions is another thing entirely. I really like being able to see things up close and firsthand. And honestly, to meet the ordinary people who do extraordinary things every single day in this country, and often that makes them in the news for whatever reason. I mean, just the privilege of doing that.
But those are the stories we repeat all the time, right? That you go home and you repeat those stories of those incredible people that just really always make a difference. All right, let's see. Johanna is asking, what has been your favorite interview of all time?
Okay, Johanna, that is the most often asked question.
It's the hardest question, I think.
Everybody asks me that question. There is an impossible answer to that question. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
I've done decades worth of interviews.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult. I have to say that in the last about 5 years ago, I did an amazing documentary for ABC News that I had to push really hard to get greenlit. And we followed a family for 3 years who had a little boy with Treacher-Collins syndrome. I don't know if you've ever read the book Wonder, but he was born with a severe facial deformity, and I mean, otherwise completely normal.
Right.
And what that family went through, and him having to write a letter to his class every day, every year before he would start school and explain what was wrong with his face, and he'd had 60 surgeries in his life, and that's a very small thing, but it was an extraordinary documentary, first of all, and because of them, not because of me, because of them. And the courage, I mean, I think about that family all the time.
Oh, wow. Those are the ones that really touch you. A lot of people want to hear celebrity names, or they want to hear a big name everybody knows, but it's
the ordinary people. Yeah.
It's those people whose story make a difference. Okay, Kayla Frost from Twitter said, as such an amazing professional, how do you really feel before starting a new role like this?
Pretty excited.
Yeah.
A little nervous. I mean, but really excited. We have a fantastic team we've assembled, my A-team, as I call them. They're all veterans from different networks. As you know, it's a very small swimming pool, especially at the network level. We're all sort of jumping back and forth. So we have producers and bookers and writers who all come from, ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, Fox News. They're all here in different incarnations and working together. But sure, every time we have a brand new set, as we showed you, a brand new control room, and a brand new team. So just hoping, fingers crossed, that it all goes smoothly tonight.
It's going smoothly. I know I'm speaking to you again later on this afternoon, live during our broadcast, actually, airing in New York. And so, this is going to be an exciting day. There's no question about it. You've got an exciting new studio, a lot of people here anxious and ready to go. We have a lot of viewers, too, so let's do another question. Eleanor, what is the latest news on President Trump's indictment?
Well, as we speak, he's about to get on his airplane in Palm Beach, Florida. He'll fly up here to New York City. Will land at LaGuardia Airport and make his way to his apartment in Trump Tower, which is right in the heart of Midtown Manhattan, as you well know. He's supposed to appear in court in the afternoon tomorrow. Lawyers are still working at the exact time, but we've been told it'll be about 2:15. And at that point, he will be fingerprinted, have his mugshot taken, and will go appear before the judge, at which point the indictment will be unsealed. And everybody from President Trump to his lawyers to all the rest of the world will finally see what it is that exactly he's been indicted for. There's been a lot of reaction thus far, but nobody who's been reacting and on either side of this has actually seen what the indictment charges are. So it'll be a big deal tomorrow afternoon.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, CJ on Twitter, how are you bringing real journalism back and fact-checking lies to inform your viewers?
I think it's really important that when possible, if somebody says something on our air that we know to be factually inaccurate, to correct them in real time. Listen, depending on who you're interviewing, that can be a challenge at times, and I really am not going to let things devolve on this show into people shouting, but we also don't want people peddling misinformation. So it's going to be important to cover the news thoughtfully, thoroughly, and not allow people to repeat things that we know to be false. Having said that, I think that there's also, there's a lot of baiting going on television right now. There's some cable networks that are breathlessly talking about, oh my God, the potential for violence and protests around former President Trump's indictment. I'm not sure that's the best way to go. Let's just deal with what's happening instead of spinning out on what might happen in all sorts of worst case scenarios.
And I know that it's, this is day to day, and you're going to be doing this at 6 o'clock live.
6 to 7.
6 to 7. So you're going to know what is happening all throughout the day, following the news throughout the day, and be able to know who the best people that are going to come on. If you're going to do live interviews as well on the show.
Lots of live interviews. It'll be mostly interview driven.
Okay,
show.
wonderful, wonderful. I'm so excited for it. Okay, Robert, I'm sorry, the questions keep coming. I love it. Robert, how can the American media better cover international affairs?
Oh,
That's
well,
a good
they're
question.
so important right now. I think just covering them to begin with. I mean, and we've seen this to a certain extent, but that's part of the controversy about this indictment. Is it's sucking up all the oxygen at a time when we have real national security threats happening in the world. We have an alliance between China and Russia, the two other of the three biggest nuclear powers on Earth. We've got Iran also seeming to ally with China and Russia. Iran supplying drones to Russia for its war in Ukraine, China and Iranian leaders meeting. We have what's happening in Israel, which I think is a tremendously undercovered story. Israel collapsing if it did, and many Israelis themselves are warning there is the potential for this, given all the protests to what Prime Minister Netanyahu is trying to do with the judicial overhaul. I mean, there's a lot of really important things happening, and I think you start by just telling what's happening and also explaining why we care. I mean, we have to always make clear, if Israel collapses or Israel wobbles, what are the other enemies of Israel in the Middle East hoping to do to take advantage of that weakness? And how does that put our American strategic interests at stake?
And I think that's what's so important about international news, because you've got to tell people how it comes back to you.
Well, any student of World War II, for example, will know that why we are arming Ukraine is because we don't want to have to be there fighting the war if NATO countries are at some point in the future attacked by Russia.
All right, Lindsay from Chicago, who is going to be on tonight's show for the debut?
Well, we are going to have Governor Asa Hutchinson, who just yesterday announced his candidacy for President of the United States. He is the only Republican thus far to publicly call on former President Trump to drop out of the race. He's a very conservative Republican hoping to, garner. He is right now an outlier, so we're going to talk to him about that. We have obviously two very smart legal minds. Paul Callan, who's a former federal prosecutor, as well as a former lawyer from the Trump White House, will be on to talk about those charges. We have Kara Swisher, who I'm a huge fan of, to talk about all things tech. We got this big letter, a few days ago from, Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak and all these other tech leaders saying AI is a threat to humanity. Is that alarmist? We're going to talk to her about that, as well as what the heck is going on with TikTok.
I know, right? The tech world, tech is getting a lot of attention these days.
I know, and then we have an amazing coach to talk about March Madness and the incredible performance by the women, and the new movement right now for college athletes to cash in on their own names, images, and likenesses, and how everybody thought, yes, they should be able to do that, but the actual way that happens is turning out to be chaotic at best. And now some people are really calling for Congress to step in and establish some rules. It's a bit of a mess, so we're going to talk to her about that.
I know you do, on a personal note, a lot to lift up.
Oh, and Admiral John Kirby will be on to talk as well.
Okay.
Yeah, from the White House.
I know you do a lot to lift up women, other women, and I think that's so important in this day and age. And I want to thank you for it, because I think it's so encouraging and so necessary, and I know that's a large part of your dialogue as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important for women to support other women. It's gotten so much better since I first came into television news, but it still leaves a lot to be I
am with you. I could not agree more.
Yeah. And we as society need to stop putting women under this insane pressure to look a certain way and act a certain way. It's really...
I'm encouraged by the 106-year-old tattoo artist on the cover of Vogue Philippines. So that was beautiful to see. There is definitely beauty in age. Yeah. So it was really nice to see that. All right. So if you have more questions, you can always send them our way. I'm excited about a couple of things, Elizabeth. I'm excited about the show, seeing you here every day when I walk back and forth past here.
Yeah,
because
your
our
studio's just down the hall.
Right on the other side, so it's going to be great. But if we want to just do one more spin around, because I want to show you all the people that put this together and what brings
Well, I think they're in a conference
together.
room right now planning
Well,
the show.
They probably are. But all these desks over here, these are people that are behind the scenes putting this show together, putting these shows together all the time. So this is a new newsroom. This is a newsroom that is going to be very busy as we get closer and closer to 6 p.m. Eastern. There we go.
Yeah, all those other desks. There's the Cuomo team. There's
Yes.
the Dan Abrams team. It's and they get in a little bit later because their show airs.
Yes,
later.
A little bit later.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I thank you so much for your time. I know you have to go get ready, and I know they're getting you ready. I want to let you all know, though, how you can find News Nation where you live. You can go to newsnationnow.com/join us to find the channel in your area. You can also download the News Nation smartphone app for the latest headlines and breaking news that you can trust. And, of course, be sure to tune in tonight for the debut of Elizabeth Vargas Reports at 6 p.m. Eastern, only on News Nation. Elizabeth, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tamsin.
I look forward to seeing you tonight.
Good to see you. Thank you.